Hello, folks joining. Yay. You're in the right place for the poetry reading. If
Right.
that's what you were expecting. I love it. I see like friends of mine joining as well as others, which is like really nice. I feel like the last time I hosted one of these was back in November, and people were like, especially like some of my coworkers who were more science people, they were like, I didn't know what to expect, but that was so wonderful. And that was especially at this time where there's a lot of mm, cruelty and inhumanity being justified and normalized all over the place. So thank you folks for joining. I'm glad you're glad you're here. It seems like people talk about poetry like it's like sometimes, well, oh, geez, I saw this randomly in the news, but like the actor Timothy Chalamet like criticizing opera and ballet is like his things that no one cares about. And I was like, maybe some people could say that about poetry, but at the same time, like it seems like a lot of people are wanting it. So. Even more so when I was young, because I've been reading and writing poetry since I was like 14. So I'm just like mouthing off as people join. But um I do feel like, it was a more th and I do feel like as I've grown and gotten older, um there's been such a greater appreciation of poetry and people wanting poetry and writing poetry, which is really cool. Like, anyway, we are at 8:01, so I'm going to get started now. Um, and so, welcome, folks. Thank you for joining. And I want to turn it first over to our introductions. We have great readings by contributors to The Nature of Our Times, the anthology. Poems for America's lands, waters, wildlife, and other natural wonders. If you haven't seen it, I will be dropping links in the chat when I can. But I'm first going to I'm going to turn it over for an introduction to David Hassler. David Hassler is the Bob and Walt Wick Director of the Wick Poetry Center at Kent State University, with Poets for Science founder Jane Hirschfield. There will be a cat here. I apologize. He and the Wick Center have led the Poets for Science initiative since 2017. And he is the author and editor of 10 books of poetry and nonfiction, including Dear Vaccine, Global Voices Speak to the Pandemic, Growing Season, The Life of a Migrant Community, and Speak a Powerful Magic, the 10 years of the Traveling Stanzas Poetry Project. And Luisa A. and Gloria, who's in here, also, she was the lead editor for The Nature of Science, along with David Hassler and uh, um, Elisa Castaneda, who couldn't be here tonight, but she's a professor of creative writing and English at Old Dominion University, and she's the author of Callbearer, the Immigrant Writing Series Prize, Maps for Immigrants and Ghosts, The Buddha Wonders If She's Having a Midlife Crisis, and 12 other books and 4 chapbooks. She is also, in addition to The Nature of Our Times, the lead editor of Dear Human at the Edge of Time, Poets on Climate Change in the US. Louisa is the 20th Poet Laureate of the Commonwealth of Virginia from 2020 to 2022 Emeritus. So I hand it over to you two.
Hi, I guess I'm leading off. Thank you so much, Emily.
getting a little bit of
I
feedback.
think it's there, Jackson. Yeah, he turned it off. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. I'm so thrilled that you're all here to join us. I want to thank all the writing communities connected to the Blue Convergence Fund. Thank you so much for making this gathering possible. And my co-editors for this poetry anthology, as you have heard, are poet and publisher Eileen Casineto of Paloma Press and poet and WIC Poetry Center Executive Director David Hassler. And they are both the most wonderful human beings and advocates for science and poetry. So, just a quick summary of what this book came from. In 2024, we sent out a call for submissions for an anthology envisioned as a companion to the first National Nature Assessment. And the assessment is now being undertaken by the Nature Record, which is a national initiative led by Dr. Philip Levin, who is professor of practice at the University of Washington and lead scientist for the Nature Conservancy of Washington. So, in brief, its goal and its work, they describe their work as rooted in science, guided by communities, and enriched by public participation. And this is where the poetry comes in. So, at the end of the spring of 2024, we received a little more than 1,300 submissions, all of which are still visible on the online gallery, The Nature of Our Times. And I think we are still adding to that. So it is really becoming a living archive of poetic observations on nature. So we're really thrilled because besides emerging poets and established poets, including our first Asian American U.S. Poet Laureate Arthur Zay, before he was named to the post, contributors include, among others, ecology researchers, wildlife trackers, science directors, a commercial fisherman, a former chancellor of the Academy of American Poets, and the founder of Poets for Science, Jane Hirschfield, a teacher of atmospheric physics, a college freshman, an oceanographer, a translator, a carpenter. The list goes on. So this is just such a wonderful collection of voices. And we are also thrilled to learn as of last night that The Nature of Our Times is a Forward Indies Book of the Year finalist. And results will come out in June, so very thrilled for that. So we hope you will recommend the anthology to your librarians, all your friends, book groups, recommend it for use in classrooms, and give it away to your friends and just spread the word. Thank you so much. And I turn it over to David.
Thank you, Louisa. I wanted to just briefly talk about the origin of Poets for Science and our joyful collaboration with Louisa and Eileen in putting this book together. As Emily, and thank you, Emily, for organizing this for the second time, this online reading and this joyful gathering here. There's a lot of folks, so this is wonderful to see. Uh, but yes, the or Jane Hirschfield back in 2017 uh, gave me a call and said, David, I have an idea for the first March for Science, which took place on the National Mall in DC on Earth Day in 2017. And she said, what about a Poets for Science? And could you help me? So in about a nanosecond, I said yes. And she curated 23 poems about science, and we designed 7-foot banners, which we took with us and pulled them up around a teach-in tent on the National Mall. People came and we handed out posters. They marched with excerpts of poems about science in that first March for Science. And in the teach-in tent, they made erasure and blackout poems based on excerpts of main stage speakers that day. And then we just took pictures. They had beautiful artist crayons and markers, and they decorated these erasure poems. We put them out on Twitter with an aggregated Twitter feed. And this idea of poets speaking to the aid of science and to science communication and responding to science and what that way of knowing through the ways of knowing of poetry took off. And so this idea, when Eileen and Louisa reached out to me at the very end of the reading today, I hope to show a very short community poem video inspired by their first anthology that Louisa and Eileen and a scientist, Jeremy Hoffman, edited as a companion to the National Climate Assessment, the NCA 5, called Dear Human, at the Edge of Time, poems on climate change in the United States. That's how we got to know each other. They reached out to me and they heard about Poets for Science. And so it's been a great joy, and I have great gratitude to work with them and putting this anthology together. And as Emily mentioned, it does feel like there is a shift happening, and it's been going on for, it feels maybe 10, 15 years, in the last many years, of people turning to poetry. A mentor of mine, Maggie Anderson, says poems are a way of speaking when ordinary language won't do. People are turning to poetry as a way to find a way to express what is troubling them, how to share their grief, how to share their love, both of which are their joy, both of which are expressions of our connection with the natural world. And I think that this anthology, as Louisa mentioned, we now have over 1,400 poems on the online gallery, and we encourage people to continue to submit poems to this online gallery. Is a testament to that. Students, teachers, adult poets, scientists, people from all walks of life have been submitting poems and saying, "I've been writing poems." Coming out to share their poems. So tonight, this reading will be this is a testament to that sort of co-arising, that effort happening all around our country and all around the world. So we're thrilled to hear the poems tonight from the poets, and it's a great honor to listen to all of you give voice tonight to these poems. So thank you.
Okay, we'll get into our featured readers. And if we have a moment at the time of the end, be great to hear the community poem. So I will start off with our first reader is William Allen, who I have to say is a mentor of mine. Has been for a long time. Um, like I'm totally dating us, but since I was in college, he was a great encourager of mine in terms of writing poetry that meant a lot to me. And so I'm so grateful to have him here. Okay, so he's a member of Pen America. He has published 5 poetry books: The Man on the Moon, Sevastopol on Photographs of War, North Passage, The Largest Glue Factory in the World, and A History of the Azores. He was awarded the 2009 National Endowment for the Arts Creative Writing Fellowship with residencies at Yaddo, Breadloaf, and the Virginia Center for Creative Arts. Bill, take it away.
Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you to the Blue Convergence Fund, to our introducers, to my fellow readers. I look forward to hearing your work too. My poems are lyrical, historical, political, and personal. They've had an urban bent as long as I lived in New York City. Now I'm living north of there and walking and thinking a lot about the natural habitats around me and across the globe, and what we can do about some climate action. First poem is called The Age of Moss. In the beginning, there was moss. Greenish algae slowly shaped our life on Earth, evolving into mass that blanketed the landforms rising from the sea with hair-like strands of filigree. Imagine fastening to naked limestone cliffs, gazing at ocean waves with sun and wind and air to breathe, no roots, no dark entanglements of branches or thickened leather leaves that sweat like poison ivy or magnolia. Your grasp on things as fragile as a sprig of moss. To find your way home, just look for clumps that grow on the north side of a tree. You'll find its stories sunk in bogs, swamps, or any habitat you see. There you might lie down or become a stone. Moss will gobble up so much carbon it's sure to bring about the next big mass extinction. The very first plant on Earth, moss may be the last. Pando, many of you know, is the name of a quaking aspen clone in the Fish Lake National Forest in Utah. Pando has 47,000 stems that look like individual trees, but they're actually genetically identical parts of a single organism connected by a root system that spans 100 acres. As a multi-stem tree, Pando is the world's largest tree by measures of weight and landmass. My friend Miguel sent me a recording of the wind there. This is called Soundscape Pando. A quaking aspen entity of 50,000 trees in a Fish Lake forest in central Utah, where a litter of kit foxes snore, where black ants are on the march, where crickets rub sore legs together, where desert winds are whispering, where tree frogs serenade the moon, where grackles congregate in corn, where spiders spin a woven orb, where mass tugs more than gravity, where shadows in the saplings sing, where butterflies beget new sorrows, where mason bees are sipping nectar, where rain arrives in thunderstorms, where deer are ravaging a forest floor, where the sun comes up upon a hill, where rangers douse a surface fire, where swallows gorge on stable flies, where snow is carpeting the sedge, where gravel runs down rivulets, where a bear enjoys a clover honey, where minks are running for their lives, where petals of the water lily drop, where we record the aspens quivering, each one of them connected underneath. My artist partner, Barbara, and I were fortunate to have a fellowship at the Virginia VCCA a few years back, where we could furiously write and print and sculpt with the spring unfolding around us and the racket of cicadas mimicking our feverish activity. Cicadas. This time, the 17-year and 13-year broods arrive in tandem to make a racket only raccoons tolerate. Below Blacksburg in Virginia, one year they broke through the earth like the dead from graves. We were artists there, fussing with projects of the heart or biking deep into pastures of grazing sheep, lying by a river where worlds burst into bloom 100 years ago, and now again in June. Under a full moon, at once cicadas came, honed their wings of carbon steel so we couldn't sleep. Elms agitated by the noise. Boys took sticks to swat them down, crush them into pulp, as in Elysian fields bursting with locusts rioting. A plague upon all artists, they seemed to be saying, seething or screeching as we finished our poems and our prints, sprinting through their dim cacophony to reach the judge's table. It was cool to discover the Ice Age in the Catskill Mountains, and then fossils from the ancient oceans of the Devonian, before there were angiosperms, our flowering trees and plants. This is called the world's first trees. Into the Catskill Mountains, up to Utsayantha Lake, we come in cars, on foot, by bike, on skis, ATVs, passing through Cairo and cruising down the corridors of jets that streak towards Finland in the north, till we reach the reservoir where we watch tired leaves turn umber. In Gilboa, we stop for lunch at a forest turned to stone. From when the planet was one continent, 400 million years ago, when palms loomed over straggler fish that slunk up from the sea, before the burst of flowering, are hundreds and thousands of kinds of buds that bloom, with bats and moths as pollinators. We swim near rocks on an ancient shore of the Devonian by fossil ferns from when we were lungfish, sucking in our earliest gasps of air as we smile and celebrate the trees that brought us oxygen. And finally, Well, we've had such a revolution in knowledge about the physical sciences, so much more to know about the planet and beyond, the exoplanets, the voids, the birth of new stars. This is called Snowball Earth. Does everyone already know the story of Snowball Earth? Where have I been for all the years of our tiniest of lifetimes? Why am I just now learning about our billions of galaxies and only a few of them have names? Like pancake, seashell, cat's paw, beehive, whirlpool, starfish, LMC, andromeda, triangulum, surrounding our warming, unglaciating Earth, shrapnel from a big bang hurtling around us and inside us, big freeze, supernova heat ray, releasing metals into space, sea, a grain of sand, what we breathe in, how infinitesimally minuscule we are, how lucky we are to be alive and willing to dream beyond a frozen world, to care about those around us in our nearest neighborhoods or friends in Kabul and Kiev, to share our fortunes, kissing, making up, denying autocrats, working to make a greener and more fertile snowball Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bill. Um, you caught Melville's attention, and we'll move on to. We'll bring in our next reader, who is Lucille Lang Day. Um, Lucille Lang Day is the author of seven full-length poetry collections and four chapbooks. The Cosmos and Me. New and selected poems will be published by Trio House Press in October 2026. Day's honors include the Blue Light Poetry Prize, two Josephine Miles Penn Oakland Literary Awards, the Joseph Henry Jackson Award, and 11 Pushcart Prize nominations. The founder and publisher at a small press, Scarlet Tanager Books. She is of Wampanoag, British, and Swiss German descent. And I'm so excited to have her here because I lived in Oakland for many years and I have told her how much I love Oakland. And our organization has also funded projects with the Wampanoag tribe, which is super cool. And so it's super cool to have you here. Take it away, Lucille.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to you, Emily, for organizing this reading, and thank you to Eileen and Louisa and David for editing the anthology and the online gallery. It's all terrific. So I'm going to start out by reading my poem from the anthology, and it's called At Lake Tahoe. Granite mountains, dense with white firs, lodgepole pines, and ponderosas, rise abruptly from the lake's blue bowl, so deep its waters could cover all of California and Nevada. The Washos, who lived here 10,000 summers, named it Lake in the Sky because it reflected clouds, sunset, and stars. They caught Lahontan trout in the lake, mountain whitefish in icy streams. On the other side of the continent, my Wampanoag ancestors were gathering cranberries, covering their summer homes with cattail mats, baking clams, drying corn, and fishing for salmon off Cape Cod. The Washos, who used only fallen trees for homes they would dismantle before leaving Lake in the Sky each winter. In fall, they gathered pinyon pine nuts to eat until spring. This was before white people came and cut down the pinyon pines to build their houses, dynamited the mountains in search of silver and gold, and claimed the fish. Now, a paddle boat with 3 decks takes tourists on cruises of Lake Tahoe. Yet in summer, Washos still do the pine nut dance, and Wampanoags do the grass dance to keep the world in balance and remind us that the earth is living, every rock is sacred, and every tree and salmon has a soul. So in addition to this poem that's in the anthology, I have 4 poems in the Nature of Our Times online gallery. And so I'll read those poems now. And I'd like everyone to know that all of these poems take place in Northern California. And this one is called The Butterflies Are Dying. Cabbage whites with black-tipped forewings are not floating this year over broccoli, mustard, and watercress. West Coast ladies with blue spots on their hind wings are not nectaring on blossoms of rabbit brush. The number of Western monarchs has decreased to 1/10% of their former population. With warmer fall weather, their bodies, regal in orange and black, overheat. Adults and eggs dehydrate. The butterflies don't know when to migrate, hibernate, or reproduce. They can't find food, and even if they lay eggs, the eggs are dying. 450 butterfly species in the West now face extinction. Oh, welcome them with milkweed and sunflowers, rabbit brush, mustard. Today, say, come to my garden. And I want to add that since I wrote that poem, the monarchs have made a partial comeback, and the scientists say that this is due in part to people planting milkweed for them in their yards. And so everything that each individual does really helps. So every milkweed plant, might save one or more monarchs. The next poem I'm going to read is called Newts in Rain, and the species is Torica turosa. They easily cross a hillside road in Briones Regional Park, while my boots alternately stick to mud or slip and slide, challenging me to keep my footing. The newts gather in ponds and streams between rolling hills that fade in fog, as oak leaves glisten in light rain and bullfrogs sing their gravelly songs. When multiple males embrace a female, a newt ball forms with legs protruding in all directions. The lady will later lay eggs in a rocky crevice. To protect themselves from birds and snakes, newts secrete a neurotoxin so potent it can kill a human and put cyanide to shame. But newts can't defend themselves against cars. I wish them closed roads and their own tunnels and bridges to lead them home. And as with the butterflies, there are people who put the newts into buckets and carry them across the streets so that they won't get hit by cars. So there's often things that we can do to help the Earth's other creatures. And this one is called Frogs in Hiding, and this species is Pseudacris cadaverina. Sunset tints Rodeo Lagoon, pink and orange, sedges and rushes rising like exclamation points, Pacific shimmering in the distance. I listen for mating calls of chorus frogs, but not a single ribbit penetrates the dimness. The frogs are hiding in burrows made by birds or rodents. They'll be back after rain, I'm told. Researchers have found them even in a pond by the airport, singing for mates as planes take off. Here, they need only compete with the roar and churn of surf and chant their raspy pickup line as they've done since the Pleistocene. And the last poem I'll read is called Winter Salmon Run, and this takes place at San Geronimo Creek. And this poem is a pair of linked sonnets. One, cohos spawn where willows shade the creek. Females swish their tails to build a nest, then wait for horny males whose final quest brings them to these damsels, silvery sleek, who show their bellies red as apples when they sweep their tails, wearing them to white, to make their mounds of gravel and invite males to come up close behind them, then drop the pearly eggs beneath their fins, to incubate all winter in the red under trees whose leaves have all been shed. In spring they'll hatch, becoming alevins, and head downstream someday to find the sea, where fishing nets run deep, but krill is free. 2, 3 years in the sea are quite enough before it's time to come back to the stream where they were born and grizzlies used to dream, while pomos, miwoks, uroks lined the bluff with nets to dip into the salmon run. The fish like stepping stones from shore to shore, but settlers took the land and fish and more, building dams and killing with their guns. No grizzlies fish today along this coast where redwoods reach into the foggy sky, and salmon used to come to mate and die by millions. I can see the salmon ghosts in pools and riffles while the uroks drum. Take out the dams now, let the salmon come. And I'll conclude by saying that there is a happy ending for at least part of this story, because after a decades-long legal battle, the Yuroks and other tribes of the Klamath River in California won their case, and 4 dams have been removed from the Klamath River. And on that river, the salmon can now return to their traditional spawning grounds. So thank you very much.
You're muted, Emily.
Yeah, I am muted. Thank you. Think I would have learned that since COVID. But I love that you bring that up, because many years ago I was congressional staff in Capitol Hill working on the authorization of removal of the Klamath dams. And so seeing that is like, ah, whoa. Anyway, okay, moving on, because we want to feature Rachel Dillon is our next reader. Rachel is a poet, teacher, and editor from Massachusetts. Her poems appear or are forthcoming in the Slowdown podcast, which, Rachel, I freaking love the Slowdown. If anyone else does not know the Slowdown, go down, don't subscribe to it right now. She's the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, the Asheville Poetry Review, the Bellevue Literary Review, On the Seawall, Pleiades, Poet Lore, and elsewhere. She was the winner of the Academy of American Poets Treehouse Climate Action Prize and the Bank Foundation's Susan Campbell Scholarship. She has also received support from the Breadloaf Environmental Writers Conference, the Kenyon Review Writers Workshop, and the Robert Pinsky Global Fellowship. She's a former high school English teacher in NYC Public Schools. I once taught in NYC Public Schools, so I totally get that. And she is the managing editor of Plowshares and lives in Boston. And for those of you who don't know, Plowshares is an awesome literary journal with amazing poetry. So take it away, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was such a lovely, enthusiastic introduction. And I agree, The Slowdown is fantastic, hosted right now by Maggie Smith. Highly recommend y'all check it out. It's a poem every single morning. What better way to start your day? Yeah, so thank you everyone for being here. It's awesome to see some familiar faces and names as well as new folks. I appreciate you spending your Monday night with us. And this is really exciting for me because I have done a bunch of poetry readings, but I've never gotten to read my work from an actual book, which is something that has always been a dream of mine as someone who's been working on a collection for many years. So thank you to David, Luisa, Aileen, who couldn't be with us, for publishing this incredible anthology. It's really such an honor to be part of it. So I'm going to start by reading my poem in the anthology. And it's called A Dead Whale Can Feed an Entire Ecosystem. A dead whale can feed an entire ecosystem, but in this poem, nothing dies. Alone in the poem, I make myself brave. No, I show brave to my body, take both to the ocean. Come hurricane, come rip current, come toxic algal bloom. In March, I drift past the estuary to watch an 8-foot dolphin lap the Mill River like a cat pacing a bathtub, sick and disoriented. Biologists will unspool her empty intestines, weigh her gray cerebellum. She swam a great distance to die alone. I'm sorry, I lied. I can't control what lives or dies. I need a place to stow my brain, to hold each moment close as a sand flea caught in my knuckle hairs. Please, someone, tell me a poem can coax oil from a seabird's throat. Tell me what to do with my hands, my hands. What can my hands do now? Um, that's that. Yeah, as someone who writes a lot about the natural world, like so many of the poets in this collection and here tonight, I find that I'm often thinking a lot about life cycles, which of course often includes death. So this next poem is called Morbid Curiosity. I'm just going to adjust my screen a little so I'm not distracted. Okay. Morbid Curiosity. People keep showing up dead in lakes. The paper asks how to address the surge in murders. In myth, death comes by boat, or midway upon the journey of our life. I think about it, the closest I've come to death that I'm aware of. 13 and green in Shenandoah, where treetops picked at the scab of sun, just done rising, my friends still asleep in their neatly zipped tents. Awake and alone, I took myself on a walk down the sloping mountain road. I heard it before I saw it, the bear cub shimmying up a tree. The sight like a seal among the waves, cute at first, but a sign of something sinister, like a shark or mama bear nearby, the greatest threat being the one you can't see. I know this now, but that morning I approached, reached out to touch her blue-black fur. I've tried to write this moment so many times, how it felt to wake in the woods and walk out, to see the baby bear and feel nothing but wonder. There was a time when I trusted the world, felt safe among the trees. I stood right in its path, no mother in sight. Silly me. So I've been working on a collection of poems for the past 6 years, and I feel like it's finally complete, which is very exciting. And an important kind of thread throughout this collection is the history and landscape of Gloucester, Massachusetts, which is a coastal town outside of Boston. And something unique about Gloucester is it contains kind of all through its center the Dogtown Forest. And the Dogtown Forest is abandoned wilderness, quite overgrown. Many people find it to be haunted. And something interesting to me about Dogtown's landscape is that during the Great Depression, there was this eccentric millionaire named Roger Babson who hired a bunch of unemployed stonecutters to carve cliche, kitschy, inspirational phrases into boulders scattered throughout Dogtown. He called this his life's book, and he believed that these inspirational phrases would save the world if people came across them. So these phrases are often quite funny, super capitalist, and I have a series of poems throughout my collection that are titled after the phrases. So these last few poems tonight are titled after Babson Boulders. This first one is called Intelligence. Having once been a child, adults called an old soul, I fixate on the finite, worry about my brain, the fact of its plasticity, its eventual turn to gray. I'm uncomfortable with this pink ham hock in my skull, like I was when us third graders were sent to watch a man dissect a sheep brain. He held the halves of that giant reeking walnut, and I ran from my vomit, from the knowledge of my insides. When I learned my name, biblically, means sheep, I filled my notebook with questions like, do sheep cry? And what does sheep breath smell like? And how does it feel to touch a sheep's nose? I couldn't stop thinking about sheep. So I visited the petting zoo, crouched at the sheep pen by a boy and his mother. Unsure how to pet, the boy was anxious, his hand a bird, gentle and fleeting. I moved out of his way, let him feel the sheep's sandpaper tongue. I don't remember his face, his fear, then glee, only that he wore a bike helmet, shining and ribboned with a repeated rainbow phrase, I love my brain, I love my brain, I love my brain. A fun fact about Gloucester, it is where frozen fish sticks were invented, and that's all you need to know to understand this next one. This is industry. But it's winter in Gloucester. Shadows purple church steeples, settle blue under eyes. Cold looms like the Gorton's fisherman, his light cast over Rogers Street, thick as film on milk. At the processing center, workers make fish perpetual, cod bludgeoned and molded, frozen into sticks, perfect with the promise to love you back. Dark mornings, I slip to the Lone Gull Cafe, where fishermen linger in coffee-stained air. Christmas lights ignite the marsh like endless lighthouses. Some say a daily dunk in ice will solve it all, keep us happy through the seasons with the right tub or ocean. But the beach is all foam, cold on gray sand. I watch a man dig for clams alone in his galoshes, the dories docked and rocking. Of sea we dream, of sea so full of fish against our legs, a different kind of wave. I forgot to mention the motto of Gorton's frozen fish sticks is they promise to love you back, which I find so interesting and strange. Yeah. I'm seeing some good reaction faces in the Zoom room there. This last poem ends on a more hopeful note. Thank you again to Emily, the Blue Convergence Fund, all the readers this evening. It's been really such a treat to hear you read and be with you. This is Loyalty. Listen, there are birds in the train station, creaking from the rafters like the swing set you once flew from, singing to the sky, your voice high and clear. The forest teaches where to look. Even when it's far away, pretend leaves overhead. Watch them flicker like pigeons, flutter hungry and quick. In the station, people pass, plastic on their arms, thanking them for shopping. You want to tell them about the language of birds, trees, and angels, that each burl born from injury makes a hidden map, that we are all we need. But it's all too much, what we've taken, what is left. Listen, along the highway, there's a forest no person has walked, and you, only you, can hear it. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel. Um, and we're gonna move on to our final reader, Jaleel Shujath. If I'm pronouncing your name correctly, please like correct me, like totally do that. Jaleel is a PhD candidate in urban sustainability and water resources management at the University of the District of Columbia, so here in DC, where I am, focusing on urban resilience, water quality, and equity-centered infrastructure planning. Jaleel's background spans biomedical research and life sciences leadership, and he brings a system-oriented approach to public service and sustainability. He is committed to building resilient communities through practical, measurable solutions. Jaleel, you speak the language of Blue Convergence Funds. So it's great to have you here. And it's great to highlight that people who write poetry, all of us, span so many topics and areas, which, the other readers do too, just as you do. So it's great to have you here. Take it away, Jaleel.
Thank you so much, Emily. It's such an honor to be even reading with some of these great poets that I've heard so far. For many years, I put the pen down just because life got in the way. I think, in fact, my last published poem was in our high school literary journal in 1989. So I want to thank uh, the the editors, etc., for giving me the inspiration to get writing again. Um, so these two poems that I'll be reading tonight are inspired by the Chesapeake Bay, which, as you may know, is the largest estuary in the United States and the third largest estuary in the world. So the first one's entitled What the Gannets Know. At 16, I learned to mend the nets while watching herons stalk the morning tide. The water knows what winter's child forgets. My father's boat, weathered with regrets, still drifts where younger dreams had lived and died. At 16, I learned to mend the nets. Each dawn brings fewer fish in empty sets, though gannets dive where schools once used to glide. The water knows what winter's child forgets. The old men speak of debts and deeper debts, of harvests lost, of ways their fathers tried. At 16, I learned to mend the nets. Now my own child walks the shore and frets for treasures buried in the turning tide. The water knows what winter's child forgets. The bay still holds what memory begets, these shells, these shores, where all our stories hide. At 16, I learned to mend the nets. The water knows what winter's child forgets. This next one is a more recent poem I wrote specifically for this reading. Um, it took me a long time, but I got it done. um, this one's entitled One Narrow Ring. The years are marked into me, circles pressed beneath the skin, like rings in an old oak, recalling droughts and storms under the bark. 54 now, I leave quietly before the city wakes, mist lifting from the tidal basin. My heart moves slower, as if it has finally read the terms and conditions of its own beating. My dear world, you carried me from plastic dinosaurs to bottles with sharp names like lisinopril and rosuvastatin, from scraped knees to a chest that counts the stairs. I grew my rings inside your weather. Year after year you turned. Each autumn dusted your branches with copper, leaves piling like unsent letters. I learned your clock by the way light fell through it. I did small things, dropped glass in the right bin, spoke softly under headlines I didn't finish. I mistook, they will figure it out, for there is still time. And truth came late, a commuter reaching a platform already cleared of trains. I remember DC after rain, marble shining like bone, water sliding down monuments, air thick with wet stone. Once a double rainbow bent over the skyline, color bruising and healing the sky at once. At 30, at 40, at 50, I felt the pull to keep living and knew I could not stay. No more slow opening of morning, no glass and river catching fire, no evenings when the world leans briefly toward mercy and the monuments glow as if they are listening. There is a guilty grace in leaving now. I will not stand through the worst of it, the summers that starve, the air that tightens, the ocean losing the habit of shore. yet you will keep turning. I will go into the soil, roots taking me in as one more ring of what has passed. If I could stay, I would move slower, listen longer, step into the rooms where futures are quietly sold. Instead, I leave what remains, breath thinning, bones learning the language of wood, carbon, and salt, this 54-year hum. Goodbye, love. If you remember me, let it be as one narrow ring in your vast trunk. Remember that once I stood in your sunset and returned to you. Thank you.
Wow, that was beautiful. That was beautiful, Jaleel. Um, wow. So we have a few minutes. We have like 10 minutes left. And I wanted to offer you the opportunity, David, you mentioned sharing the community poem from
Yeah.
uh, Dear Human at the Edge of Time, which was
Yes.
another, yeah.
Yes. And before I share the community poem real quick, I just want to make an announcement to all of you. This is such a beautiful reading, and I invite you all to consider coming to Kent for a Poets for Science gathering, 2.5 days in November. And we have a call for proposals to do breakout sessions, panels, workshops, readings, generative writing workshops. And we have just a few people coming. Jane Hirschfield and Tracy K. Smith and Arthur Z. and Camille Dungy, Maria Popova, Diana Ackerman, Kimberly Blazer, Allison Hawthorne Deming, our very own Philip Levin and Jane Luchenko and Melissa Nelson and Brandon Kilborn. So please consider coming. The website for the gathering is at poetryScience.org. And we have been receiving a big flow of proposals. So I encourage you to think about if you want to do a session, please, over the next several weeks, uh, put it together and submit it through our submittable link.
I'm gonna
Um,
just like jump in and say Jane Hirschfield, there's a great interview with her on Ezra Klein for those of you that
yes.
listen to the Ezra Klein
Yeah.
podcast. Like go listen to it. It's so awesome. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So I want to share this beautiful community poem that Eileen Casanetto, our co-editor of The Nature of Our Times and the co-editor with Louisa on and Jeremy Hoffman on Dear Human at the Edge of Time. We scripted this larger community poem, weaving voices together, both from poems in the anthology and from online submissions to some prompts we gave, inspired by the anthology. And AGU, the American Geophysical Union, produced this video, which we absolutely love. And you'll see artwork from the NCA 5. The National Climate Assessment had an online call for visual art. Those are woven into this video, and all the readers come from around the world, but they're people are reading not their own lines, but reading. We have both we'll show the contributors and then the readers at the very end. So it's called Dear Human at the Edge of Time.
사랑하는 인간이여 미바멘 수야만 estimado ser humano 칭하이 나를 인간 أناشيم יקרים Dear Human at the Edge of Time, a community poem.
Say, anyone here seen a jump frog lately? Not the saucy poster frogs making the circuit of nature museums,
But the hearty bulls who advertise their longing, who puffed up and peed in your berry-stained hands.
Who can deny that sea stars are stunning?
The way their arms sparkle with jewels, the way they regenerate.
I have only so many limbs, and I can't grow back what I've lost.
When did we lose our way to a place where we value roads over rivers?
Parking lots over prairies, resorts over reefs.
It doesn't seem like you should be able to hold panic, like a too full cup.
But all day it sloshes and slips inside of me.
These days, it's all about walking lightly on this earth.
listening to all who are speaking beyond words.
If the songbirds can still sing, then we can still hope.
If the roots of the old pines protruding from the asphalt slow your walk,
then stop to thank them for this moment.
To steady the feet, to look beyond the wire fences where the wild wheat glows golden,
and soft in the sun, as if discovering what light can do for the first time.
Have you heard the whispers that ride along the breeze and come out in the rustle of the leaves?
That live in the dewdrops as they sparkle on the morning grass.
In the atoms that vibrate to make apple skins and shrimp shells.
They travel through the sun's rays and come out in refractions.
Have you heard the whispers? Listen, they are everywhere.
I found a way to pray.
Through my feet I reach down.
There's something animate, mycelial, that touches me back.
It's a species of love, a thinking spike, a zinging circuit of energy.
And what if we can stop it? After all,
could stop the change too swift for us to grasp.
Listening instead to the maple's sweet dusk drip in the metal bucket.
Can we learn to live in sync with nature?
And in harmony with one another?
The stranger asked, what has kept you from singing?
I have no answer save for the melody within me, rising and rising.
Look inward, at that core of ourselves.
Remember our past and decide who we wish to be.
When we tell the story.
When we tell the story.
When we tell the story of how we survived the collapse, we might say,
like birds, we learn to move as one.
We grew lighter
and lengthened our wings.
Thank you so much for that. And we are right at the end. And I'm going to read a quick poem to lead us out with this. And I'm going to read the poem that I had in the Nature of Our Times anthology. And I'm so grateful for David and Luisa and Eileen for putting it in the anthology. That was very exciting for me. And it's called Chrysora Queenfe Sera. Warm winds meet cold waters, raise folds of Maine fog. It slows my car. It flicks on my headlights, feeling around for each cliff edge, each threat lurking in the mist like distant thunder. Or that thing that blurs dreams, that abandons us on an edge of revelation. I admire this Maine, have come to its edge to pursue, to measure, to master oceanography. But the science, the numbers, the microscopes, or papers cannot hold the breath of this Atlantic. My black death, my blue dream, the void that opens in a hunted school of mackerel, tornado swirl of silver dissolving into dark. I am home here, in the cold, sopping wet, unable to see past the length of my arm. I drive the roads of Midcoast. I can never recognize anything in this place. The Damariscotta River knows this. This placeless poem knows this. I pull over, enter the cold empire. Water spiders, dragonflies glance the surface. It looks like seaweed, that red snake of a body drifting towards me. I reach to touch, but Chrysora, Quique Sera, the Atlantic sea nettle, wraps its tentacles down to the bone of my wrist, clings so tight my pulse erupts in fire. I don't let go. What if you wanted a love so much you would take its poison on your own tongue? Rough to rough, predator to prey. This is what I love and what I lose again, no matter what form I come in. Again and again, I come in. Thank you so much for everyone who joined. Can we please give like a big round of applause to the, like, come off mute or whatever and like give a round of applause to all the readers and like thank you so much and thank you for Poets for Science for existing.
Totally. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
What a
everyone.
joyful
Have a
reading.
good
Thank you so
night.
much. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Emily, for organizing.
Thank you.
Awesome
Good night.
job.
Yay.
See you all in Kent.
Right.
That's right.
Lovely hour. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.